I've been in practice for over 30 years. I'm really happy to be on the Kim Sorrelle show. We've had such an interesting conversation about all things fertility, and I really encourage all of you to listen to it.
Welcome to the show. I'm so happy you're here. You are going to be so happy you're here. I'm Kim Sorrelle. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I just got to speak at the UN a little while ago. I was just in Dubai speaking. I get these incredible fun opportunities. I get to do so many fun things in life. But my favorite thing to do by far is to meet people. And I get to meet some of the most extraordinary human beings on the face of this earth. And today is no exception. I have Dr. Marina with me, and she has insights that you're going to want to hear. Insights about some really important things for women. And so you're going to want to hear this. Even if you're a guy, you might want to hear this stuff for your wife or for your future wife or whatever. So we've got some great stuff we're going to be talking about today. So first of all, Marina, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to do this.
Oh, I'm so happy that you're here. I love your background. I love books. I love your bookcases. They look fabulous. Looks like you've got some fun reading behind you. And you've got a book coming out, and we're going to be talking about that later as well. But first, I want people to get to know you. I want to hear about your story. So I'd like you to start with 8-year-old Marina. Tell me about her.
8-year-old Marina. So I grew up in Ottawa, Canada, where I still am today. I came back as many times as I left. And I grew up in a Polish family. We spoke Polish at home. And so it was a bit different than my neighborhood. And my parents also decided to send us to French school first before going to English school, which I think was very wise. So my first education was in French, but I switched over to English later. And I was always a very artistic child. So I think everybody thought I would go into the fine arts because we did have some artists in the family, but that's not the way it turned out. I think I decided as a teenager that what my real interest was medicine, because it was just, I just wanted to know everything about the human body and how it worked, and all the intricate details. So I decided that probably at the age of 16, when my older sister was already in university and she asked me what I wanted to do. And yes, I guess I have to have a job one day. Yes, I think I want to go into medicine. And my first interest was psychiatry, which very interestingly, my sister ended up doing.
Oh, funny.
Because
Yeah.
she went to medical school after me, but she went into a 3-year program. And I took a year off and went around the world during medical school. So we actually graduated the same year
Oh,
in,
wow.
in different universities. So it was kind of fortuitous,
Yeah.
interesting. And she ended up going into psychiatry. Whereas I had different ideas. At one point, I wanted to go into neurology because I was doing some neurology research. And then I took my trip around the world and I did a few neurology rotations. And I realized that I, even though it was a fascinating field, at the time there were very few treatments. It was just all about diagnosis. And there were very, very sad cases. And I really felt like this would be too much for me. And I came back from my year around the world, really not knowing what to do, but knowing already that my sister was going into psychiatry. So I started from scratch, and I had an OBGYN rotation, and I just fell in love with delivering babies. It's just so magical. The whole thing was wonderful. So that's how I made my decision.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's so cool. I love that story. I love it. And how wise of you to take that year and really explore. I've known doctors. I've taken lots of medical students on trips
Mhm.
like to Haiti, Dominican Republic, Burkina Faso, to developing nations that need
Really
help. Yes,
interesting.
yeah, yeah. And it's been so great. And quite often they don't know for sure what field they want to go into. You know, people feel like they have to know, but man, with as long as medical school is and as long as residencies are, and then you do a fellowship and whatever, it's like me go into the field you want to go into. I've known people who have changed. And so taking that year to really kind of figure it out, man, that makes so much sense to me.
I think that's the wisest thing I ever did. But I'll tell you, my colleagues at the time thought I was crazy. They thought I wouldn't come back. And I said, no, I've invested 3 years. I have 1 year left. Of course I'm coming back. My dean was also a little bit suspicious, but he agreed to it. My thinking at the time was that we only had a 6 week elective time in the whole 4 years. It's changed a lot now. And I thought, there's so many things I want to do. And I also want to see how medicine is in other countries. And it really opened my eyes to a lot. And actually, I've also done quite a bit of work in East Africa and Haiti, teaching obstetric skills and I've, later in my career. So that's
Oh,
also part of what I love is giving back in other countries and trying to help them.
oh, that's so cool. I love it that you do that. I love that. We probably know some of the same people in Haiti.
Maybe,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah, because I've worked with a lot of medical clinics there, a lot of doctors there all
interesting.
over the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yes, and talk about a place that really needs advancement in medicine. And but the doctors are just few and far between. You know, there's so
Yes.
few doctors, and jobs are way better in Canada and the US for what a doctor can make. Last I knew, it was like $700 a year, or is that what it was? $700
Yes.
a month, maybe
Month,
for a
probably. Yeah.
doctor. Yeah, something like that
Mhm.
for a doctor in Haiti was like the going wage or the wage. And it's hard to survive places. And then looking abroad, you go, wow, my opportunities there are so big and great, and
Mhm.
do more and whatever, that it's hard for doctors to want to stay in places like Haiti. So
Absolutely. I mean, of course they search for something better and then they leave. But it's almost the same thing with Canada and the United States. The pay difference between us and you is very big. And it's interesting because my husband and I actually did interview in California thinking, should we leave? And I made the decision to stay because I was the only one in the family who stayed here. And I was here. And when my mother's still alive, she's turning 97 next month.
oh, wow.
But
Awesome.
both my brother and sister went away to Vancouver, which is it's a 5 hour flight. So they're quite far away. And I'm the only kid here. Kid, I'm a kid who's a senior citizen, but anyway, I'm a kid.
Yeah.
And I think for my family, I really made the right decision. But interestingly enough, my daughter is a doctor in the US.
Oh,
So
wow. Yeah. Yeah. And what is her field?
her field is she's in her last year of emergency medicine
Oh, wow.
in New Jersey at the fifth biggest trauma center in the US. So she's getting amazing training, but sometimes it's a bit scary because there's even gunfights in the emergency department there. Like she carries a can of pepper spray in her pocket because she's been attacked so many times in the emergency department.
Wow.
So it's a really different life than what we have here,
Yeah.
but
Well,
it's
yeah.
exciting too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it so depends on what city you're in, and what the culture is like in that city. And there are some places that it would be awfully, awfully tough to work in the
Yeah,
emergency room, and much more dangerous than other places. And so go her. She must be one gutsy
yeah.
gal.
She's a gutsy girl. Yeah, she really is.
Yeah.
So I'm so proud of her. But she's also the one who led me on the whole path of writing a book about fertility
Yeah.
because she graduated from medical school a few years ago and she was older than the rest of her classmates. She had done a few degrees before, and her birthday came up. She turned 31 when she graduated, and she said, "Mama, for my birthday, will you pay for me to freeze my eggs?" And of course, I knew that was in the background. I knew that she wants children and so forth, but I didn't realize how acutely she was feeling the pressure of, oh my God, I'm starting this residency. When will I ever do this? And that got me really thinking, like, my first reaction was, of course, I want grandchildren, I'll pay. If that's what I have to do, I will pay for
Right.
it.
Right.
But then I thought, you don't want to freeze your eggs when you're stressed and tired. And I knew her residency was going to be tough. I don't even think she knew how tough at the time. And I thought, first you want to make sure your eggs are good quality before you freeze them. And that got me on the whole research of what lifestyle changes do improve your egg quality and your chance of fertility. And the question is it better to change their environment where they are rather than take them out and freeze them? what if we improve your health to the point where it improves your fertility? And I was thinking along those lines because I've been very interested in longevity medicine for many years. I've also go to a lot of those conferences. In fact, I'm leaving for one tomorrow with my husband. And really the idea of improving lifestyle to improve longevity is a huge thing. Why not apply the same thing to fertility? And that hasn't really been talked about,
Yeah.
in general.
No, no, it's not what you hear at all. I have friends who got married in their 30s, and it was like pressure to get married. Like after a certain age, you're like, oh my gosh, I want to have kids, I want to have a family. How do I find somebody? And there is this pressure, pressure, pressure. So then if you're also trying to get pregnant under this pressure, I've known couples that have not been able to conceive, and then they adopt, and it's like as soon as that baby comes home, they find out they're pregnant,
Yes, yes,
right?
that's a classic example of how stress can affect you when you're trying to get pregnant. And it really has to be recognized and dealt with because that's a
Yeah,
huge issue.
yeah, that's interesting because it'd be hard to feel the stress and then be told you can't feel the stress. Don't be stressed. It's hurting you to
Yes,
be stressed, which would make it more stressful in some ways. So I'm
exactly.
sure you have practical ways to think about things and work through things so that you are getting rid of that stress that affects your whole body.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is acknowledging it because, we all say, oh, we're stressed. All our lives are stressful, right? But acknowledging that you're stressed and looking for the source of the stress to try and deal with it. Because a lot of, people complain, I hate my job, I hate my boss. Well, think of concrete ways that you can make that better. That's one very, very practical solution. But there's a lot out there. Like there's even programs on webinars that help you deal with the stress of infertility, for instance, using mind-body programs. And they've been proven to improve fertility. The women who went through these programs had a much higher conception rate within the next year than women who did not. So it's out there, but people don't talk about it.
Right. Yeah. No, people don't talk about it. It seems like there's a couple of solutions that people do, and those are the ones like that. That is the path that you take. You ask your friends, this is what they've done, this is what they've done, right? And
Yeah.
without kind of looking outside the box a little bit. And so what you're doing though is bringing incredible exposure to, hey, ladies, there's more to it. There's more that you can be doing to make sure that you can have that family you desire.
And it's not just for ladies, it's for men as well. I mean, it's been proven that improving diet, improving exercise and activity, improving endocrine disruption exposure increases sperm counts in men. So, it's a couple journey. It's not a woman's journey, it's both because most of the time infertility is not just one clear cause. It's multifactorial. It's a lot of things. And if you work on all of them, you can really improve your health, your longevity, and your fertility.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Well, and aging is another thing that obviously has been a big thing for you is, and you've figured out some stuff there that right now I'm looking at you and you look like you're 48 years old and you called yourself a senior citizen. So whatever it is you're doing to stay so young looking is working.
Absolutely. I think lifestyle is key. And, I read about these things. I'm fascinating. The one good thing that COVID did for me is I started taking the time to sleep as much as I need to and exercising every day. And so COVID has been very positive in my life. Most people don't say that. Most people say the opposite, but I use that time to really help myself physically and mentally. So
Yeah.
that
That's
was a
that's
good
so
thing.
good. Yeah, and I love that you're saying that because I think that anything in life we can
Hmm.
take it for good or we can take it for bad. And
Absolutely. It's
right?
just it's just the way that you're looking at it, your outlook. So
Mm.
important.
Yeah, 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 because that alone changes everything.
Hmm.
So exercise, what do you do for exercise every day?
So me personally,
Yeah.
I've gone through stages where, for instance, when I was pregnant, swimming was swimming laps in the pool. I just both pregnancies I did that. I used to go to an outside gym, but now for a number of years, probably 15 years, we've had a treadmill, an elliptical in the basement, and a rowing machine and weights, and I just do it here at home. It's just so much easier. And I look forward to it. It's a part of my day that's for myself, and it really makes me feel so much better. So it's so worthwhile.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And you can listen to music or listen to
Hmm.
a book or listen to a podcast or whatever. And it's just time that you can invest in yourself, right? That this is all about you and nobody can do it for you. You're the only one. And I love it that there's so much like on YouTube. I was watching this girl, Chloe, for a long time and exercising with her. And like there's so many different exercise things that are available to you right in your own home that you don't have to
Hmm.
have a gym membership. You can stay home and exercise and what it does for your body, how important that is and how important it is too when you're talking about wanting to conceive.
Mm. Yes, and that's been proven. Women who exercise and men who exercise regularly have higher fertility rates. Now, it's one of those things like in medicine, I say the Goldilocks principle is the most important. A lot of things, too little or too much is not good for you. It's just got to be just right. So, amount of exercise is one of those because if you exercise too much, it actually decreases your fertility rate. It's the same with food. It's the same with like hormone levels. There's always an ideal, like just the right amount, and that's what you aim for.
So how do you know if you're exercising too little or too much? What is the formula for that?
Well, you can follow the WHO recommendations, which is actually like minimal, I would say, is 150 minutes of exercise a week. But you have to remember, there's different forms of exercise, right? There is cardio, which is very important, but there's also muscle strengthening, which is incredibly important. Balance, and I'm forgetting something, but it'll come to me. So there's different things that you want to do. You want to have a well-rounded activity level. I'm sorry about the background noise.
Ah, I'm not hearing anything, so you're
You're
fine.
not hearing?
No,
Okay. All
no,
right.
your
Good. Good.
microphone's working just fine. So yeah, yeah. So that's a very interesting thing because
Mhm.
I think sometimes there's a pressure to feel like, oh my gosh, it's got to be 60 minutes a day, hardcore at the gym, 7 days a week, or whatever.
I don't think so that it really has to be that high level of activity. You just have to move your body. You do want to get your heart going for a certain amount of time. Um, but it doesn't have to be hardcore and it doesn't have to be awful. I mean, it's really something that you can integrate easily into your life, and it makes such a difference. And if you read, are you familiar with Peter Attia, who has a podcast called The Drive? He is a doctor who he doesn't practice medicine anymore. He does this full time, but he's written a book on longevity. I read all the longevity literature. It's called Outlive, and he talks about the drivers of longevity. And he believes, and I believe he's right, that exercise activity is probably the most important driver because sarcopenia, which is muscle loss, it kills elderly people.
Mm,
We need our muscles for our metabolism to work. And as people get older and they stop their activity, their muscles shrink, their whole metabolism changes. And so it is important in so many aspects of our life.
yeah, interesting. Yeah, that is so interesting. And yeah, because people tend to get a little, they slow down and don't do as much. And
Yeah.
I remember when I was newly married, the first house that we lived in, there was a man in the neighborhood that I would see walking every single day. And to me, when I was in my 20s, that man seemed like he was 110 years old. I don't know how old he was, but he was an older guy for sure. And he was like speed walking, like he would just truck through the neighborhood every single day. And he's probably still alive, I feel like. Like
Mhm.
he just looked healthy. He looked like he felt healthy. But you don't see Yeah, or I don't see that so much. I don't feel like he stood out to me because it was rare rather
Yes.
than
Yeah.
being the
Yeah.
rule. Saw a
Hmm.
lot of other people walking, but he was this, old guy walking. I thought, good for
Hmm.
him. I want to be that old guy walking someday.
Exactly. He's
Yeah.
probably a happy old guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No kidding, no kidding. And in great shape. So that's really important. And muscle, you hear more and more about that all the time.
Mhm.
Some people, I think, used to think that muscle training was if you're going to be a bodybuilder or you're going to whatever, but muscle is important. And
Yeah.
so
But
protein,
it doesn't have to be big, huge muscles. People take things to extremes, and also I worry about those guys with big, huge muscles. Are they using steroids in the gym, which are terrible for fertility? They suppress your own testosterone levels, and men who overexercise or take those steroids can be infertile.
yeah,
And
yeah.
they don't talk about that in the gyms.
No, no. Well, and it's for the look right today, right? Like right
Yeah.
now, they want to look all buff at the beach or whatever, so they don't really necessarily think about how it's going to affect them tomorrow or down the road.
Hmm.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, they don't talk about those things in the gym at all. So, diet is another
Hmm.
important thing, and that can be another word that people associate that word with all different kinds of things, from Weight Watchers, named diets to what you
Hmm.
actually eat each day. And with some people, there's a negative connotation depending on how they were raised, or, if their mom had them on a diet when they were 8 years old, like my mom did, or, whatever. But uh, feeding your body, realizing you just have this one body and you get to decide what goes into it, and
Exactly.
knowing what you're putting into it and knowing what to put into it are so important.
Hmm. Hmm. And now we have genomics, which can help you tremendously because we all metabolize food, medication, toxins differently. And when you do your nutrigenomic testing, which is it's the branch of genetics that has to do with how nutrition affects your body and how your body uh, um, metabolizes nutrition, it can guide you to help you know what supplementation you need. And this has actually been done to improve pregnancy outcomes. There is a genetic test called the Grow Baby test, which looks at 40 markers which are important for pregnancy outcomes. And they've tested it in a group of 100 Medicaid patients. They basically did the genetics tests and supplemented according to their genetics and then followed their pregnancies, and they compared them to 100 women who were just having regular antenatal care in a private clinic. So they were, having good care. And the Medicaid group had significantly less pregnancy-induced hypertension and gestational diabetes. When I
Mm.
read that study, I thought, this is massive. Every obstetrician should know about this. But are you kidding? It's not taught in medical school. It's not talked about in regular obstetrics environments. It's very much thought to be alternative. But we
Mm.
should all be embracing personalized medicine because it does make sense that we all need the same dose of medication. We all metabolize it differently. We should be dosing according to our genetics. And that's happening in certain fields of medicine, like oncology, for instance, because the pharmaceutical industry is what's driving it. They make a lot of money in oncology, so they want to do the genetics. But are they doing it on a day-to-day basis for anybody else? No.
Mm.
And it's sad. It's sad that that's considered alternative because that's basic medicine.
Right. Yeah. 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 Right. You would think that it would be. You would think that that
Mhm.
would be a part of everything. But it has always amazed me that nutrition isn't a huge part of what is taught in general in medical school.
Really, we're taught nothing about lifestyle and or just pretty much nothing. And my daughter went to medical school a few years ago, so I know what her curriculum was like. And I was asking her, have you been learning about genomics? No, not at all. Medicine is very, very slow to change. They always say, oh, we need double-blind randomized controlled trials to figure out anything. That's not going to happen in areas where there's no money to be made.
Mm.
And lifestyle medicine, there's really no money to be made for companies. So any research that's done by researchers is going to usually be small trials because research is so expensive. So we can't be guided purely by that. You have to use common sense and look at things in a way that makes sense. It suggests things that have very little risk but potential a lot of benefit. We can all do that.
Right, right. Yeah. And it makes so much sense to do that and to take control of your own health. You
Hmm.
mentioned that earlier too, that you do have to be your own advocate. And when
Yes.
I was growing up, we had a family doctor and that was kind of it, but
Hmm.
there's all these specialties and it seems like everything is more and more specialized. Like you go
Yeah.
to your family doc, but you get sent out for pretty much everything.
Yeah. And they
Anything.
all work in silos. They
Yeah,
don't they don't work with each other.
yeah.
So that's why when I first heard about functional medicine, which was about 20 years ago, I realized it's a different paradigm. It's functional medicine is basically roots cause medicine. It's looking at what may have caused this problem, but it looks very deeply at your history, your personal history, your family history, your genetics, your exposures, things that are not looked at conventionally, and really looks at the fixing the root cause. And I think a lot of chronic diseases have to be approached that way. Our conventional medical system is very good at acute care, responsive care to trauma, to, surgery, this kind of thing. But when it comes to chronic conditions, it doesn't do as well. It really, and that's why I think doctors need to be more open-minded to other approaches. But
Mhm.
unfortunately, they're so busy, they're slammed because there's too few doctors, there's too little time. Now I would say probably half of the population doesn't have a family doctor here. It's crazy. So there's
Wow.
nobody coordinating the care. So, if people don't take it in their own hands and decide that they're in charge of their care, it might not happen.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting to me too, because I think some people put doctors on a pedestal and go, wow, well, if they tell me this, then this has got to be right, and it's got to be the only right,
Right, exactly.
right?
And there's so many ways to look at things. In my book, I also explore, traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine and what they say about fertility. Because I believe these old cultures, they have a lot of knowledge. Just because they look at things differently doesn't mean we should say it doesn't work. I think
So
we should be open to it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It seems like slowly, little by little, people are looking more at like
Hmm.
Chinese medicine and more with things with herbs and alternatives,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
it seems awfully slow in coming.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got a good friend who's a functional medicine doctor, and
Hmm.
she practiced regular medicine for years and got so frustrated with the system and frustrated
Hmm.
with not being able to really dive into things because of the way insurance worked. And
Yes.
and it was so stifling that she said, forget insurance. And now she's just on her own doing functional medicine. And it's sad
Well,
that it's that way.
yeah, well, good for her because it's a brave leap to do that. That's something I considered, but it was too frightening to leave the system that pays us, and I would have to leave it entirely in order to pick this up. And that is a very scary thing for somebody who's been in practice for a long time. I couldn't do it. But what I did is I brought elements of it into my practice and, explained it to patients as much as I could in the limited time I had. But that's why I ended up writing a book because I don't have time to say all these things to everybody.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. Which what a great resource for people. I mean, what an incredible thing because there is so much to know that we're not being told. And
Yeah.
we do put our faith in doctors. I have the best, I'm telling you, I'm so thrilled with my personal doctor, my family doc. I adore her. She's excellent. She's thorough. She takes time. She's so, so good. But I know lots of other people. I've got lots of friends who are like, I wish I could find a good doctor. I wish I
Mm.
could find what you have because I know what I have is rare and good.
Hmm.
And someday she may want to retire and I will cry when that happens because I'll miss her so much because she's so good. But it does take time and you're on this limited schedule. A physical is supposed to take this amount of time. and you got your patient scheduled out, and the insurance company is only going to pay for this. And
Yeah.
the way the system works is you end up part of the system instead of someone being able to really sit down with you and go, okay, well, tell me how you're feeling. Tell me what's
Exactly.
going on, right? And really dive in. And like you said, get to the root of things instead of just, well, shoot, you got headaches. Well, this is what you take,
So
right?
this is one thing my patients really taught me through years of practice is to listen. And sometimes, they will come telling me things that I really can't even help them with. But the fact that I took 5 to 10 minutes to listen, they're so thankful for, because very few people do that.
So true, so true. And whether it's because they're rushed or because of their training or whatever it happens to be,
Mhm,
it's not easy. And I think too, like in the US, doctors do okay, but it
mhm.
depends on the field, right? Like some doctors make a killing, make a ton of money.
Yes.
Other doctors not as much money, but it's still a good living. And
Mhm,
so there's been more of a draw maybe for some medical students to want to go into certain fields that pay a little bit better, which makes
mhm,
other fields like family medicine that doesn't pay as much less enticing to people.
mhm.
And so
Yeah.
like my son first got his PhD as a cancer researcher and
Mhm,
then got an MD so he could actually work with people and was going to do pathology and decided to do family med because there's such a need for it. So all those years that he put into getting his PhD certainly will help him in as a family doc, give him a whole different perspective. But
yeah.
still, it's not what he could be doing had he
Mhm.
followed that career. But I think it's hard for doctors to do that. I mean, going to school is tough, and it costs so much money. That's a whole nother
Yes.
thing. Is you leave medical school with these huge
Huge
loans.
debts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gigantic. And it's like, man, let's not do that to people. I think we should stop doing that to doctors and let them go to med school because we need them. We need them so
Yeah.
desperately that somewhere in there too, our system is just kind of broken.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. So my daughter and I spend a lot of time comparing systems, and on both sides, there's a lot of brokenness. It's just a little bit different here and there, but it's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And I don't know, like, would you look at it and go, because Canadian medicine and US medicine get compared a lot. I
Yes.
hear
Yeah.
a lot of people say, oh my gosh, I wish I lived in Canada because, or oh, I wish I lived in the US because, or whatever. And is there a system in the world that you'd go, wow, that's the system we should be emulating?
I think the Nordic countries have great systems. Somehow they've managed to do a good mix of public and private, and you know, I I don't know why people don't talk about them more, because maybe because they're smaller countries. But I think our system is too bent on trying to, treat everybody equally, which I think is great, because we do have that equal treatment, but we end up having these long, long wait times for surgery and procedures, which, why not let people who can afford to pay for it themselves, have that? And they don't want to let go of that, even though it's really happening, but nobody's acknowledging it. Um, it's yeah, there's so many issues, so many issues. Insurance
Yeah,
companies are a big problem in the United States too, because they drive how everything is practiced, and that's not great. When you're told this is the way you must practice, it's just very limiting.
yeah, right. And why limit? Because we're talking people to people. We're talking about
Yeah,
humanity. We're talking about human beings, which above
exactly.
all else should be treated right, right? So when it comes
Hmm.
to processing food or when it comes to medications or when it comes to what a doctor can do or not do, we should just be pro people. Like that
Hmm.
should be the attitude is how can we help people? Like that you would think
Exactly.
would be the end goal, but some of it just seems money driven rather than people driven.
Yeah, it is. And we live in a capitalist society, so it's really not surprising that money is a big driver, but It's not ideal either.
No, no, no. So if you can, I don't know, keep as human as possible, I guess, right? While
Hmm.
working within the system and just be human to each other and be nice
Yeah.
to your doctors, for goodness sake. You know, like doctors care. I don't personally know a doctor who went into it for the money. I don't.
Yes.
I don't.
You know what? I think the people who try to do that, they get weeded out very quickly because they don't realize you have to be passionate to get through this. I think it because it is really tough. The training is hard, exhausting, and hard.
Yeah, mentally, physically, emotionally, and in every
Mhm.
way, it's difficult. It's not an easy path to take, and it's not an
Yeah,
easy
well,
path to continue for years.
congratulations to your son because going back to do medicine after a PhD is tough. That's he didn't choose an easy path.
No, no, no. And had he done it, had he done MD, PhD at the same time, had he
Hmm.
known that he would want to get his MD, it would have been free. But then
Yeah,
instead, his PhD was all free, but then his MD was not so free.
yeah,
And you know the cost of medical school, and so yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. But I think my son, I don't think is abnormal in medicine. I think there are most, if not all, but a huge percentage of people who are in medicine are in it for exactly the right reasons. They're in it
Mhm.
because they're compassionate, they're passionate about how the human body works, and they're compassionate toward people, and they want to help people. And I think that's something that we as patients need to keep in mind, that our
Mhm.
doctors are
Mhm.
for us, they're not against us.
Right,
They're
exactly.
not there for the money, they're there because they care about people, and they care about you as their patient. And so we need to be kind to our doctors and supportive, and realize it's not easy. There's nothing easy about it. That
Yeah.
there's just nothing easy about it. I don't know. And emergency med, your daughter, oh my word, God bless her. Like that's tough. And I would think too, there'd be certain areas of medicine that it would be difficult to not grow a little cynical, and that would be one of them
Yes.
for me.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
seeing repeat patients, or you're seeing repeat issues, or you're seeing things that you go, did anybody ever teach you how to eat, or did anybody ever teach you not to eat, or whatever, right? And the
Exactly.
same issues with people. Do you get frustrated at all as you're working with women that want to have babies so bad, or working with couples that they want to have babies so bad? Do you run into some things that are pretty regular issues that you go, man, change these couple things, people?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I see that a lot, that it's frustrating when, when somebody really wants to get pregnant. And the problem is, of course, women are delaying it. I look back at, my own family. I had in the 1950s and 60s a working mom, which was unusual where I grew up. Most moms were at stay at home, despite the fact that she had a full time job. She had three kids by the time she was 30. So then, my generation, I went to medical school and I had 15 years of postgraduate training, after high school. So that's a lot of years. And I did not want to have a baby until I finished my training, but I literally got married the Saturday after I finished my residency on Friday, and I got pregnant right away. So I was lucky. It turned out well that way. But so I had two kids by the time I was 38. And now I have a 33-year-old daughter who is single, busy as hell, wants a family, and doesn't know, you can see the timelines have stretched significantly.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know statistically, like what the age was maybe 20 years ago, 40 years ago, the average age?
Oh, oh yes. So the average age for both men and women has increased significantly. It's still on the fairly young side. I think in the United States, for a woman for the first baby, it's about 27 and a half. And, it's climbed from, early 20s for sure. So on average, it's still pretty good. But I'll say that the women who are wanting to get educated and develop their careers are the ones who are putting it off,
Mhm.
and for good reasons, that they want to get established and so forth. But that means that they're going to have significantly more trouble because, as you know, women only have a certain amount of eggs and they're never going to get more. They're only going to get less. So what's really important is the quality of those eggs, not so much the number, the quality. Whereas men have unlimited amount of sperm and they keep making it and making it,
Their
right?
whole life. Yes.
Their
Yeah.
whole life.
Yeah.
But the quality definitely goes down and the numbers do go down. And I don't know if you know, but over the last 2 generations, the average men's sperm counts have decreased by over 50%.
Wow. Why
So
is
men are, so there's a really good book called Countdown by Professor Shauna Swan is her last name. And she looked at that closely. And one of the big factors are the endocrine disrupting chemicals that we're all exposed to. Sperm are very, very sensitive to chemicals, and particularly phthalates, which are chemicals found in fragrances and in plastics. And yeah, so sperm are really, really delicate little creatures.
Huh.
And
Interesting.
they're being killed off by our environment, which is our own fault.
Right.
And we're leaving this world to our the next generation that's going to be significantly lower in number, and they're going to have to deal with all these issues. So
Yeah. Oh my word. Yeah. No, I had no idea. I didn't know that that was a thing.
mhm.
50% is significant.
And
That's
it's continuing to decrease year by year.
wow. Wow. Yeah. Well, you know, when I was growing up, I grew up in the 60s, 70s. And I remember there being this, oh, we're going to have overpopulation. Everybody was worried about overpopulation. And
That's right.
right? In some countries, we were doing something about it, like limiting the number of children that somebody could have and whatever, because we were just going to be overpopulated. And instead, we're in a place where what is it? The average woman has to have 2.1 kids or something.
Yes, to keep the population stable, each woman has to have 2.1 children. So right now, I believe very few first world countries are meeting that. Third world countries are still meeting that because they had greater fertility rates to begin with, but theirs are also shrinking. So mostly the continent of Africa is still in the positive state, and the rest of the world is pretty much negative. With the lowest fertility rate in the world is in South Korea, and it's about zero point 0.6 or zero point 0.7 children per woman.
Wow. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
But
But
yeah,
it's also interesting to note that some countries, even in the 70s, were starting to have a negative fertility rate, like Italy and Japan. There's a really interesting documentary called Birth Gap, and you can get it on birthgap.org. And it's Stephen Shaw is a demographer who basically spent the last 10 years looking at this and traveling the world and talking to people and looking for reasons. And it's a fascinating documentary. But he shows you these maps of different countries with time of how their fertility rates are decreasing. And it's absolutely shocking to look at.
wow. Wow. Well, there's so many issues that
Hmm.
happen because of that, right? So
Yeah.
we're going to have all these older people without younger people filling the gap and stepping
Yes.
in. So very interesting. And I'll tell
So,
you though, it was like I felt like I was shamed sometimes. I had 4 kids and I birthed 4 kids, and my oldest was 4.5 when my youngest was born. So they were very close together. Yeah.
wow.
Oh yeah. The 80s, I'm telling you, the 80s are a complete blur to me. I don't even know what happened during that time, but my kids made it through somehow. But it was going around with 4 kids, I I got looks. Like people were like, "Oh my word, you know, we're worried about population and you're having 4 kids. Like, what do you think you're doing? Like, you're overpopulating. You've taken kids from other people, or I don't know what people thought, but it was like this shameful thing to have more than 1 or 2 kids, which was weird to me at the time. Still a little weird
Yes.
to me, but it is interesting that nowadays, when you hear somebody has 4 kids, you go, "Wow, that's a big family."
Yeah.
That didn't used to be a big family. That used to be pretty average. But now it's considered large. It's weird how the
Hmm.
numbers have changed and how the thinking changed. But
Yes.
yet then we're not having enough kids to keep things going. So
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
interesting in Japan, which has a very low fertility rate. They have so many elderly people and no young people to look after them. So they started a program with India where they're taking Indian immigrants, teaching them Japanese and bringing them to Japan to look after their elderly.
Wow. Wow.
So, that we have to start looking at these countries like Japan, Italy, South Korea, because they're the ones who are being impacted now, and they're having to think more outside of the box. Our fertility rates are still a little bit better, but US is better than Canada, and our population is low as well.
Mm,
So US is still pretty good, but it's not keeping the population, it's not sustaining the
that's
population.
everyone. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the fertility rates are low in Japan?
Oh, extremely low. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. hmm Yeah.
So the issue is it not so much people don't want to have children as it is they can't conceive?
It's a combination. Certainly, it is more acceptable now for women to say they don't want children. It used to be pretty unacceptable. Like this was something, you're supposed to do. So now, obviously there's different ideas and it's quite acceptable. So that's part of it, but it's also women deferring. In this film, the Stephen Shaw took basically polls of women, and he's deduced that 80% of childless women did not mean to be childless, did not plan to be childless. It just happened. It either happened because they waited too long, they didn't meet the right partner that they wanted to have children with, or they couldn't get pregnant.
Mm,
So it's definitely not something most women want, though there are some who don't want children, but it's a combination of different things. And certainly our lifestyle is hugely impactful. You
yeah.
know, the way we eat. It's been shown that women who eat fast food more than 4 times a week have significantly lower fertility rates.
Oh,
So what
interesting.
you put in your body, I call it, we should call it not bites of food, but bites with a Y of information that we're sending to our body of how our body should function. And if we're sending it the wrong information, it's not going to work right. So
Wow.
food is incredibly important.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is good? What is like the perfect diet?
So personally, I don't believe that there is a perfect diet. I think it varies genetically. Excuse me. I had laryngitis 2 weeks ago. I'm still having a
Oh,
little bit of a funny voice. So we vary genetically, but if you want the easy answer, the most studied diet for fertility is the Mediterranean diet, which we know is good for general health. So
mm,
that's basically a diet that you would find in rural Italy or rural Greece. It's a lot, it's plant heavy. It's not completely vegetarian, of course, but the meats that they have is mostly either chicken or fish. They have very little red meat, and they have more seafood. They have more legumes. Um, so they get their protein from legumes as well. And they have a lot of healthy oils like olive oil, so that is a very good diet, generally speaking. But then I believe also in the nutrigenomics. If you can afford to do the testing, find out exactly what your body needs in terms of vitamins. Or these vitamins and minerals are cofactors for um, enzymatic pathways that our body needs to digest food and toxins and medications. And so if you're genetically, one pathway isn't working very well, if you take the right cofactors, vitamins and minerals, you can actually boost your enzymatic pathway so you can metabolize things better.
wow, that's incredible. I don't think
Mhm.
anybody's talking about that at all. But how
Well,
important is that?
people are, but again, it's considered alternative, which it shouldn't be because it's real medicine.
Right.
It's just, I think alternative practitioners look forward more and look at what's happening. Whereas in conventional medicine, it's, oh, well, if you didn't teach me this in medical school or residency, well, I don't need to know it.
Right, 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 right. Something else to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So how does somebody go about getting that testing done?
So there's a lot of companies out there. I got very interested in genetics. Well, actually, my undergraduate degree was in genetics, so I have a background interest. But I first heard about 23andMe over 10 years ago. I tested my family. And I learned about the genetic SNPs. They're called SNPs, the single nucleotide polymorphisms. It's a short form for a variation that happens in your genetics that can change things. And I started learning more about it. Now, 23andMe, unfortunately, has gone bankrupt, but somebody else bought it. I don't know if they're still doing genetic testing because it used to be the cheapest genetic test you could get. But there's many other companies out there that are starting to do these things. Like I mentioned, the Grow Baby test, which is particularly for pregnancy outcomes. There's a company called Nutrigenomics with an X that is here in Canada, in Toronto, that offers a test that looks at 70 markers, and they interpret it according to what you want. So they'll take the same test and interpret it for improving sports performance or for improving fertility. So there's a lot of companies out there who are doing things. It's available, but it costs money. It's not covered by insurance or anything like that. You have to decide that you're worthwhile to do the testing.
Right. Well, and the reality is it's going to cost you somewhere, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
it can cost you now and you pay for the test and you learn about your body and then you change whatever it is you need to change about what you're doing to your body, or it's going to cost you later because you're going to be paying because you've got a disease or you've got something that has gone bad that's not working for you. Or I mean, even talking about fertility, it's a lot of money to do IVF or any of those things are
Absolutely.
so much money. So if there are things that you can do to make your eggs healthier, your sperm healthier, increase the count,
Yeah.
and that way cheaper than going through so many of the other things that are out there.
Yeah. Yeah, way cheaper, but people are not told about it. Like if they're having a fertility problem, they go to their regular doctor. There's a usual workup, like is the sperm count okay? Is the woman ovulating? Are her tubes open? I look at that as plumbing issues, really, because they're just issues of getting the sperm and the egg to meet. But it's much more complicated. As I mentioned, the quality of the sperm and the quality of the egg is what's going to make the difference. And if we look at diet, exercise, but also sleep is a huge factor. Stress management. I mean, we all have stress. Let's acknowledge that. But the way we manage it is what makes the difference. But the elephant in the room for me is the endocrine disrupting chemicals, which very few people talk about. And yet these are affecting us massively. The reason that we don't realize that is that our bodies are actually generally pretty good at getting rid of toxins. But some of us will vary genetically in that, and some of us are not as good. And it's really good to know if you're having a problem with that because you can change that with supplementation.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. So people look into it and see what you can do and what's available to you. And like you said, there's things out there that are available. You just got to be willing to invest. And as far as how much it costs to invest in that kind of a thing, what would you say a range is in?
Well, 23andMe was like $199 when I did it. And then it went up a little bit, but not that much. I mean, that is amazing for the amount of information. What people didn't know is that you could go in the back door and browse your data if you knew about genetics. And there was a lot of data that they didn't actually tell you up front that they've tested for. So I downloaded all my family's data, and when I learn about a new genomic SNP, I can go back and check.
Oh
And
yeah. Yeah.
so that was great. So, but now the newer tests will test only 70 markers or 40 markers or whatever they're particularly interested in, whereas 23andMe did thousands.
Wow.
But they didn't tell people that.
Yeah.
They only told people a certain amount, like what was better researched and we knew about.
Right. What people were more aware of. So if you want to do like the 40 or the 70, like what kind of pricing is that?
So usually what companies do is they don't let it open to the public like 23andMe did, because that has potential implications if people don't have the knowledge how to interpret the test. So they usually release it to practitioners, and the practitioners will add their own price for explaining the test, the counseling that goes with it. So it may vary. It may be, anywhere from $400 to $600 perhaps for a test, depending on what the practitioner is charging for their interpretation and counseling.
So it's something you can ask your doctor for.
So the problem is, again, conventional doctors are not trained in this. So some are, obviously, I have an interest, so I've learned about it, but it's a bit unusual. It'll be more functional medicine doctors or naturopaths who have a specific interest in that. Now, it will grow with time and people will learn more about it and the pricing will go down over time as it becomes more common. But who knows how long that's going to take?
Right, right. Yeah, it's a big boat that turns very slowly. So
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
so making a change doesn't happen quickly, that's for sure. So what rewarding work you do. I mean, it just has to be incredible to see couples go from wanting to have a baby so bad to bringing home that bundle of joy.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's an amazing, amazing journey.
Yeah.
But and it's so rewarding to sometimes make a very subtle change. Like sometimes it's just a matter of education. So I in my book I talk about this. I try to talk about little stories about patients that I've seen over the years. So this one couple was trying to have a baby for over a year, and so they came to see me, and we talked about everything, and they had a certain amount of knowledge. Now, a lot of women have no knowledge of when they are fertile. This should be taught better in high school, or maybe it's taught and women don't remember, 20 years later when they're ready. So we just had a chat about her cycle. Like, so the average menstrual cycle is 28 days with ovulation on day 14. The clue is that this is average. This doesn't mean everybody has a 28-day cycle. There's variation, but your ovulation day will change according to your cycle length. So this woman kept having sex with her partner on day 14 of her cycle, trying to get pregnant. But it turned out that her cycle was 4 days shorter. It was 24 days, not 28 days, which automatically means her ovulation was on day 10 and not day 14. So she was missing the ovulation time because she stuck with the day 14 idea. So as soon as I told her this, she went out and she got pregnant within a few months,
Wow.
and it was just a tiny piece of information that was missing, that
Yeah,
nobody had gone over it with her.
yeah,
So that's incredibly rewarding because that's just such an easy, thing to do. But of course,
yeah,
it's usually not that easy. It's usually multiple things that have to be looked at.
yeah. But even so, I'm sure
Mhm.
there's a lot of couples out there that, yeah, I mean, you do forget. I remember going like for us, I think it was fifth grade or sixth grade. So you're 10, 11 years old, something like that. And they had a night that you'd go to a movie with your mom if you were a girl, or you'd go to a movie with your dad if you were a boy. And they talked about reproduction and how it all worked. And it was so funny because I remember going to it with my mom, and it was like, I don't know what they're talking about. And there's pictures of like sperm swimming up to meet something, and whatever was going on. I'm 10 years old going, what the heck? And we got in the car, and my mom said, well, you already knew all that stuff. I said, did I?
Did
I'm
I? I
thinking,
didn't know I did.
I don't even know what it was now. So how do I know? And she said, yeah, we sat down when you were 8 years old. Dr. Spock talks to 8-year-olds, and we went through the book. And I'm like, I don't even remember that. But it was just kind of
Yeah.
assumed that you should know. But so then if you don't learn anything from then till
Hmm.
you're 30 years old and want to have kids, there can be some really simple things that you forget. Like one of the
Yeah,
things
for
that I
sure.
do remember learning was that sperm live 48 hours. Is there any accuracy to that?
Actually, no, sperm live up to 5 days,
Oh, up to
but
5 days.
the egg only lives 24 hours. So,
Ah,
so you can potentially have intercourse before ovulation and it'll still work, but once 24 hours after ovulation, it's too late. So
oh,
that's where the timing is important. But what strikes me is that our education, sex education in high school, when I remember it, it was basically trying to avoid teen pregnancy, which I agree is an important issue. You absolutely want to do that, but it was focused on contraception and not focused on maintaining fertility, which
Yeah.
we really have to start moving that ship in the right direction.
Yeah, so true. That's so true. That's such a great point. And especially now with people having kids later
Mhm.
and it being more difficult, more and more difficult for more and more people. It does make sense. Yeah, it's so interesting because the 72-hour thing or 48-hour, whatever 48-hour, I guess, is what I'd been taught somewhere along the line that sperm lived.
Mhm.
So I just figured, well, if we did it every other night for a month, we're gonna hit the day.
Mhm.
That's how
Which
we got pregnant when we wanted to get pregnant.
actually statistically is the best way to do it, because if you do it every day, the sperm it gets more dilute. So
Mm,
it's actually not good to do it every day. Every second day is better. Or, these days they have the ovulation sticks, and you can be more accurate and time it properly.
yeah,
If the sticks work for you, they don't work for everybody.
yeah. So then there's that, and then there's that, and then there's that, which is why you wrote a book. And so
Yeah.
your book is coming out. Hopefully, by the time this episode releases, your book will be available. But if it's not, people can go on your website and sign up for it, right?
That's right. I have a wait
Yeah.
list for the book.
Yeah.
And my website is drmarinaobgyn.com. It's drmarinaobgyn.com. And I have a wait list for the book. I also do a weekly blog on fertility issues. And I have a free report, which you can download, on the 7 tips of optimizing your chance of achieving a healthy pregnancy. It's at that website /free report in one word. So if
Yeah.
anybody's interested, they can come to the website and get that.
It's so good. I thank you so much for what you do because it's so important and it's changing people's lives. And I love it that you have all these resources available, that your book is coming out, and that there's a place that people can go because what a sad, frustrating thing it is when you want to have a baby and it's just not happening for you. So thank you so much for all that you're doing to make it better for couples, for people out there.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I'm saying to everybody that's listening, Dr. Marina, go to the website, get the information. You probably know somebody that you should pass this episode along to, your kids, your cousin, your friend, your next door neighbor, whoever who maybe is going through this right now. This is, I'm telling you, the best information that you can get that can be so helpful today. Right away, it can bring help and relief and help to relieve some of the stress and the anxiety over it all. And so follow Dr. Marina, follow her blog, get the book, get on her list to get the book. We'll have all of the information in the show notes, but pass this along and love people enough to pass it along. Don't be afraid to do that. And Dr. Marina, thank you again so much for being here. I so appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks. And thank you everybody for listening and for being with us today. And I just want to say that I pray that until we see each other again, that you keep your heart open and you live your love loud.